I'm Larry Fedoruk. This is Later That Same Life. Thanks for choosing this new episode of my weekly podcast, looking at our world through people, events, and stories.
Season 4, Chapter 7.
Least popular conspiracy theories. Sorry, just a minute. What? Least popular conspiracy theories. Okay, got it.
Conspiracy theories.
Conspiracy theory.
Conspiracies aren't just theories.
Today, just for fun, I thought we'd look at conspiracy theories. Why do people believe in them? I'm going to save that part for later. There are many popular conspiracy theories. And when I say popular, it's not that most people believe in them necessarily. It's just that a lot of people are at least aware of them. You know, the big ones. We've never been to the moon. The Earth is flat. UFOs are housed in Area 51. JFK, 9/11, vaccines. Well, the list is long. But today, here's a few conspiracy theories not as well known or widely spread. Number 1. Beatles drummer Ringo Starr is a woman. Evidence? Ringo was christened Richard Starkey because his parents wanted a son. He was an only child, so he went along with it. However, in adulthood, he quickly changed his name to something more gender neutral, partly because of his love of rings and jewelry, in the day a largely feminine trait. He was one of the first Beatles to grow his hair long, as was the female style of the day. Ringo's true gender was known to the other Beatles since their days in Hamburg, when Ringo was playing for other bands. Actually, it was widely known at the time, but rarely discussed. As the Beatles' popularity grew, apparently they were more than willing to reveal this little nugget of information, but the media quickly began calling them the Four Lads from Liverpool. By that time, it would hardly do to admit that they were actually three lads and a bird. Among the British youth at the time, bird was the expression for girl. The money and the fame were just too much, so Ringo and the other Beatles went along. The Beatles, as they were wont to do, dropped clues along the way. For example, the songs where Ringo sang lead. Boys, Act Naturally, Yellow Submarine. They all speak to their secret subtext. When the other Beatles grew beards, Ringo added a fake mustache. I mean, come on, look at it. No one would have a mustache like that for real. On the Sgt. Pepper's album cover, Ringo is the only one wearing pink. On the Let It Be album, Ringo occupies a bottom left square. Bottom left, the same square as Cindy on the Brady Bunch. Well, the list of evidence is overwhelming. Perhaps the most damning proof as to the veracity of this theory comes from 1968, during the Beatles' intense sessions for what would become the White Album. For a period of several days, and out of frustration, Ringo walked out, quit the band. John and Paul contemplated replacing Ringo with another female drummer, Karen Carpenter. That, of course, never happened, but in over 50 years, Paul McCartney has never once commented on this story, or even referenced it. And as far as I know, no interviewer or biographer has ever confronted him with that story. The silence is very suspicious. Least popular conspiracy theory number 2. O.J. Simpson not only killed Nicole Brown and Ron Goldman, but was a highly suspected serial killer who operated in the Los Angeles area for well over a decade, relatively unchallenged. Here are the facts. Many of these unsolved murders, cold cases in the greater Los Angeles area, happened in the NFL offseason. Out of literally thousands of homicides, in 32 cases, a life-sized cardboard cutout of O.J. Simpson was found at or mere blocks from the scene of the crime. O.J.'s jersey number, that's right, 32. Further proof, almost everyone involved with the Naked Gun movies has since died, many under non-mysterious circumstances, getting away with murder. Next, among the not quite as popular conspiracy theories, Mother Teresa was not a real person. She never really existed. Here's the actual story. In the 1980s, an advertising agency was tasked with the assignment of creating some public service announcements for a charity that was operating out of Calcutta. A young ad executive, Rathburn Ogilvy, took on the job and decided quickly that rather than showing footage of people in dire straits, as many of those public service announcements had done before, he would create a character that people would be sympathetic toward. These kind of ad characters work so well for other products. Some of his early ideas can be found as notes on napkins and matchbooks. One was a crusading priest or minister who looked a lot like Indiana Jones. Another idea was a preteen female explorer with a big smile and a heart of gold, or a team of doctors who also played in a band. But eventually he chose the idea of an older, somewhat frail nun. Originally, she was named Sister Janice after Ogilvy's own sister, Janice. But eventually he went with Mother Teresa, after his mother, Teresa. There were months and months of auditions. Ogilvy and his creative team needed somebody very talented, but preferably new, so that people wouldn't recognize the actor, even with all the makeup. Nicole Kidman almost got the job. They chose a young and upcoming actor named John Leguizamo. He would play the character of Mother Teresa. The rest, as they say, is history. Highly successful. This was an advertising icon beyond even the Where's the Beef Lady, the Maytag repairman, or even Ronald McDonald. Leguizamo starred as Mother Teresa in dozens of ads, made public appearances at the mall, and spoke at the UN. Leguizamo went on to star in Die Hard 2 and Carlito's Way, among others, so other actors took over the role, 15 in total. Eventually, some of the TV ads had Mother Teresa as a computer-generated image. It is thought that 5 different popes have been in on this conspiracy over the decades. Odd that none of the makeup artists who work on these projects are alive today. Many died under very non-mysterious circumstances. Next on the list, Hurricane Katrina was created by the Socialist Democrats in bed with the major news media in order to make George W. Bush look bad. And, if you remember, it worked. The so-called Hurricane Katrina actually took place on a soundstage in Hollywood, and it was all done with actors. Think about this. Have you ever met anyone who was in New Orleans in August of 2005? I haven't. And even if you have, how well do you know them? How much do you trust them? I thought so. Next theory. How old is the planet? Well, rough estimates say about 4.5 billion years old. But I'm not talking about that. According to conspiracy theorists, here on planet Earth, it should actually be only 2017. The change happened in the American colonies somewhere in the mid-18th century. Here's what happened. I read some articles. The first ever U.S. insurance company was co-founded by Benjamin Franklin in 1752. That's fact, documented. Franklin was also a printer, and he first came up with the idea that your insurance company should send you a nice little desk calendar every year as a thank you for your patronage. Good old Benjamin also saw this as extra income. He hired a local kid, an 11-year-old named Benedict Arnold, to help him set the type. Hundreds and hundreds of calendars were printed and sent out without anyone noticing that the calendar said 1757. Not 1752, but 1757. Benjamin Franklin, when confronted, reacted by blaming it all on the young typesetter. The first thing he did was fire Benedict Arnold, who, incidentally, never forgot that humiliation. And then, bizarrely, Franklin claimed that, in fact, it was 1757. Prove me wrong, he said. Alas, many could not. Many said, well, it is Benjamin Franklin. He usually knows what he's talking about. Word began to spread throughout the towns, the encampments, and eventually over to Europe that it was indeed 1757. Time has been marked incorrectly ever since that year. Here's further evidence. The issue apparently was only raised once since that time. Benjamin Franklin died in what was known then as 1790, and only a few months later, a military officer named Benedict Arnold brought forth this error to the U.S. government. Ben Franklin's son Murray was brought forth in front of a congressional committee. Murray said he knew what he knew, but he didn't feel that it was fair he should have to rat out his father, or himself, for that matter. What happened only a few months later? Coincidence? I don't think so. In 1791, the United States passed the Fifth Amendment to the U.S. Constitution. People had the right against self-incrimination. Talk about a cover-up, huh? Wow. Hey, listen, I guess over 4.5 billion years of existence, 5 years doesn't matter that much. But isn't this interesting? It makes complete sense to me. And finally, this lesser-known conspiracy theory. Birds aren't real. That's right. Birds, the winged creatures, all sizes, all species, not real. Birds are actually surveillance drones manufactured by the U.S. government. How do they do that? Well, according to the man behind this theory, Peter McIndoe, the government mercilessly destroyed 12 billion birds and replaced them with these drones in order to keep track of the population without arousing suspicion. Come to think of it, that pigeon on my balcony did look a little sketchy. How about that seagull by the dumpster? Those Canada geese, what are they doing just standing there on the boulevard? Why? 'Cause all birds are surveillance drones. I saw it in the New York Times. You may never have heard of any of these conspiracy theories, right? Well, that's because I made them up out of thin air. Ringo, OJ, Mother Teresa, Hurricane Katrina, the calendar, all of them except the last one. Birds aren't real has been around since about 2017. 2017 on the current calendar. And Peter McIndoe actually exists and did an interview about this with the New York Times. And here's the line. With the New York Times, he stayed in character. A character espousing his conspiracy beliefs. Later, it was revealed that birds aren't real was a satirical message, a hoax on a hoax almost, just to say how ludicrous conspiracy theories are. Like me, he was trying to make a point. Occasionally, conspiracy theories can turn out to be true. Watergate is the prime example here, but those are also very rare, certainly in the minority. Ever wonder why some people believe in these conspiracy theories? Well, first and foremost, I think it's because one of the earliest ones ever became highly successful for its perpetrators. We call it organized religion. That guy over there, he says he's the son of God. Nah, come on. Well, hold on here a minute. Of all the worldwide religions, isn't it odd that the most popular ones are the ones that are least based in factual history? So when it comes to believing, hey look, we've had centuries of experience. Even 400 years before all that, Socrates, how about that, huh? Killed. There was a conspiracy theory around him. He was trying to poison the minds of the youth. You poison them, we poison you. Drink this hemlock. So to me, that's number one. And also study after study shows that if you are predisposed to believing any conspiracy theory at all, you are more susceptible and more likely to believe another, and another, and another. Yeah, but way back then, what did they know then? Here we are, modern times. We've just come through 40 good years of the information age. And now it should be so much easier to share the truth. Yeah, you'd think it would be easier than ever before to debunk, tear these theories apart. Yeah, but times aren't better. They're worse. Oh, I'm sure there's a network of smart people having wonderful discussions somewhere. But what's also happened, it's much easier for every crazy out there to achieve validation. Say the nuttiest, stupidest thing you can ever think of. Ringo Starr is a woman. You will find a good number of people who say, I think he's right. I was just thinking that. Psychologists who have studied these believers have found a couple of key things by way of explanation. One sounds complicated, but it's not. It's called illusory pattern perception. It's almost like humans have been hardwired for this, to perceive patterns in things and places and events. That's how we survived. We recognized from experience that that big striped cat in the jungle was a significant personal danger. Don't step in that quicksand or anything that looks like it. On and on we perceive the patterns. But so strong is our will to survive that we are constantly on the lookout for those patterns. And what happens occasionally is we begin to see patterns where none really exist. A good example of this today are sports people. They're all about the patterns. Home field advantage. The team is 9-2 when they wear the red jerseys. These guys are on a hot streak. But many of these things are just random. There's no pattern. Many are the results of dozens of people and hundreds of events combining and permutating into a result. Sorry, not always a pattern. Hey, it's cool to look for one, because sometimes, like I said, there is one. But when you don't see one, give up, move on. The truth is out there. Illusory pattern perception. It's got to be simpler than that, right? It's just a lack of education. That's why people believe in conspiracy theories. Well, yes, but what the doctors found, that a lack of education just increases our uncertainty. We don't like uncertainty, and we all have uncertainty. And here's the thing, too, with the glut of information and everybody being connected, it's easier to be uncertain than it ever was. Information coming at us all the time at 1,000 miles an hour in 3 forms: real, miss, and dis. Things become tougher to process. Trust becomes a rare commodity. We end up needing better explanations, especially when there are big consequences. For example, the President of the United States shot dead in the street. That's a big deal. Can't be just one lone gunman. Had to be the mafia, Cubans, Russians, and the CIA working together. And then later, a huge cover-up by the Warren Commission. Yeah, that makes more sense. Big consequences need better explanations. And as I've said so often, truth is usually boring. Lies are much more fun. Illusory pattern perception and uncertainty. Those are the big ones as to why people believe in conspiracy theories. Unless, of course, it's the psychologists who have conspired to prevent us from seeking out the real truth. Like, about those chemtrails coming out of the jet planes. No, but seriously, it's those two, exacerbated by a lack of education, and now this interconnected world. It's more important than ever that we know what's real, and really, with only a minimal amount of extra effort, it is easier than ever to find out what's real. Let me give you an example. Vladimir Putin. The real one died in 1983 and was replaced by a robot built in China who still controls the software to this day. My cousin's friend had a sister who went to high school with a guy whose uncle lived next door to this other guy who knew someone who worked on the project. Also, I seen it on Facebook.
Later That Same Life is written, voiced, and produced by Larry Fedoruk. LarryFedoruk37@gmail.com. Subscribe to Larry's podcast YouTube channel. Get automatic notifications with each new episode.